Chapter 23-26 Above the Moon 1. The Dreamer's engine started up, and a deafening roar, like an earthquake, echoed above Tianhai City. Bailey Chongqing, leading a group of well-equipped Shadow Squad members, saluted the warship from afar, watching the behemoth slowly ascend into the air and then accelerate away from the planet's surface. Morana gripped the edge of the warship with both hands. She could feel a transparent energy shield forming outside the warship, isolating it from everything outside. It can actually fly into space without the need for rocket propulsion? Morana's eyes were filled with shock. With the current level of human science and technology, it is simply unimaginable how to propel such a massive warship into space. This is the power of mechanical civilizations below the second generation, which have developed science and technology to the extreme. Even a warship left over from an old era can easily overturn their worldview. The warships rose into the air like mountains and then rapidly accelerated towards outer space. Meanwhile, beneath the Bytine headquarters, a crack appeared in the earth, revealing a secret underground base. A strangely shaped, silver-gray spaceship, roughly the size of a destroyer, slowly ascended into the air, spewing blue flames. Its structure is completely unlike any human technological product because this thing itself is a remnant of a previous era. The Betagan government named it Noah's Ark. Disciplined priest Corey Orion and mourning sister Brittany Leibniz led a squad of Templar Knights as they stepped onto the spaceship. The Pope was not present. The person who saw them off was Cardinal Arnold Oleb. "May the merciful God bless you." Oreb prayed fervently for them. Orion and Leibniz also clasped their hands together and prayed before the silver cross. "Wait for the good news of our victory." A maniacal grin spread across Orion's face. "Once this sacred ritual begins, it will not stop. We will become eternal." After the Noah's Ark spacecraft's hatch closed, a professional pilot inside immediately took it into space. In Colombia, they still use spacecraft, but they were unprecedented super space shuttles, 2 of which could carry 1 spacecraft to space. It is very large in scale and carries about 200 people. People from most countries, including some mysterious members of the Pupil Organization, traveled to the moon in it. As he was about to depart, Benjamin Morgan gazed at this masterpiece of Colombia and remarked with a touch of pride, "After seeing our latest technological creations from Colombia, I wonder if those guys from the Holy See of Junjing and Chaos of Huashu Kingdom will regret not coming to ask for a ticket." Colombia is the most technologically advanced country on this planet. 3 spaceships launched simultaneously, heading towards the moon. After the Dreamer entered the stratosphere, Zhou Coder gathered everyone on board. Then everyone was given a capsule. "What is this? Seasickness medicine?" Brian held the capsule and asked curiously. Zhou Coder smiled gently. "This is an oxygen capsule. After you take it, it will slowly break down in your stomach and continuously provide you with oxygen. This way, we can avoid the burden of carrying oxygen cylinders." Brian was shocked. "There are such good things?" It glanced at the portable compressed oxygen device on its waist and immediately felt that it wasn't appealing at all. Zhang Yi said to them, "Carrying compressed oxygen wouldn't have been a problem, but considering that we might need to fight, if the external oxygen leaks, you'll be doomed in the space environment." Indra frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "Why you and not we? Aren't we all acting together?" Zhang Yi smiled faintly. "As a space-type ability user, I have no such worries." He could even take the barrier between the 2 worlds to its extreme, completely isolating the internal and external environments, even blocking out air and light. At that time, there will be no need to worry about external influences. Di Shirtian and the others couldn't help but marvel at how convenient space-type ability users were. They were practically transport captains. Everyone received compressed oxygen capsules from Zhou Coder. Gao Changkong looked at the capsule in his hand, a meaningful look in his eyes. He really wouldn't dare to eat anything given to him by others. Zhang Yi noticed his odd behavior, scoffed lightly, and asked casually, "What? Worried I'll poison you?" The others were just about to eat when they heard this and suddenly stopped what they were doing. However, some people don't care at all and swallow it directly. For example, Professor Leonardo da Vinci and Brian and Saladin, the monarch of the Cotton Empire. Professor da Vinci looked at the hesitant crowd with dead fish eyes and said, "We're all in the same boat now." He pointed to the dreamer at his feet. "If we can't solve the problem of the moon, none of us will be happy. I don't believe chaos has any reason to poison you here. Besides, if he really wanted to do something to you, he wouldn't need such complicated methods, would he?" Professor da Vinci and Brian have both witnessed firsthand just how powerful Zhang Yi has become. Having absorbed a portion of the underworld gatekeeper's essence, his superpower index is at least 45,000 and may even approach 50,000. Besides, there's a super battleship here. If I really wanted to take action, very few people here would survive. Seeing Professor Leonardo da Vinci and others take the lead, everyone else followed suit and swallowed oxygen capsules. Gao Chongkong shook his head and said to Zhang Yi, "I didn't doubt you. I just wanted to ask if you could give me a few more." Zhang Yi chuckled, patted him on the shoulder, and said with narrowed eyes, "Inventory is limited and must be allocated reasonably. I hope you understand." Gao Chongkong thought to himself, "Isn't he just trying to use this thing to control us? This guy is as cunning as ever." However, he swallowed the capsule whole. Even if he had been poisoned, he had no better choice. The oxygen capsule dissolves quickly after being swallowed. To everyone's surprise, the group discovered that they did not need to breathe and did not experience any oxygen deficiency. All you need to do is expel the waste gas from your body. The person who invented this is a genius. Professor Leonardo da Vinci couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Zhou could have gracefully placed her hands in front of her and nodded, saying, "Thank you for your praise." A gentle light appeared in Zhang Yi's eyes, but more than anything, there was pride. None of his family members were a burden. Yes, of course. Sister Kerr is the best. Fatty Sue, standing beside him, was gnawing on a chicken leg while talking, his mouth covered in oil. Zhang Yi, I take back what I just said. Chapter 23-27 Above the Moon, 2. The dreamer reached the outside of the atmosphere in less than 10 minutes, a speed that is truly astonishing. Zhang Yi instructed Liu Karen to temporarily halt the spaceship in outer space, rather than rushing forward. Saladin asked Zhang Yi, "Why did you stop?" "Wait for them." Zhang Yi pointed meaningfully, with his chin in the direction of the planet. Saladin immediately understood, and a knowing smile appeared on his face. The three spaceships launched simultaneously. The dreamer's performance was far superior to theirs, but Zhang Yi did not want to be the first to arrive on the moon. If we encounter trouble and don't have their help, wouldn't we just be the ones walking on landmines? The agreed-upon landing coordinates were all in the same area, so soon they saw another spaceship fly out of the planet. However, compared to the dreamer, it is so small that it looks like a tiny boat. Father Orion, with his arms crossed and his massive frame resembling that of a giant bear, sat in the cabin directing the overall operation. Suddenly, a gasp came from the driver's cab. "My God, what is that? God, is there something wrong with my eyes? Is that where the gods live?" Orion frowned immediately and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" Sister Leibniz also stopped praying and looked over curiously. A Templar knight, peering through the porthole, turned and said to the two in a trembling voice, "Lord Orion, look. This is nothing short of a miracle." Orion stood up curiously, walked over to take a look, and was immediately so frightened that his eyes widened like saucers. Sister Leibniz also covered her mouth and cried out in surprise. "This is a spaceship? A super battleship, over 2 kilometers long and towering like a mountain, hovered silently not far in front of them. In the desolate and vast universe, they passed by, appearing pitifully small. Even those from the Epsilon and the Holy See, faced with such a shocking feeling in the universe, were speechless. They couldn't even imagine that it was a human spaceship. Instead, they felt it must be the creation of some incredibly powerful ancient civilization. Just then, a familiar voice reached Father Orion and Sister Leibniz's ears. "Fellow members of the Holy See, please lead the way." The speaker was Zhang Yi, who stood in the high command room of the warship, looking down at the small spaceship with a faint smile on his face. The only people who can contact the moon people are the people of the Holy See, so to avoid unnecessary trouble, they should take the lead. Upon hearing Zhang Yi's voice, Father Orion and Sister Leibniz fell into a long silence. A terrifying thought formed in their minds. Does this terrifying super warship belong to the Huashu Kingdom? Hey, can you hear me? This is the Dreamer, and Captain Chaos is speaking to you. It's finally confirmed. It took the two of them a long time to calm down. That's right, it's us. Father Orion asked, is this super warship from your Huashu Kingdom? Unable to contain his curiosity, he asked. Of course not. Zhang Yi replied. Father Orlean and Leibniz breathed a sigh of relief, but then they heard Zhang Yi say, this is mine. Two people. Their brains went blank for a moment. Such a terrifying weapon, a super creation of technological civilization, actually belongs to Zhang Yi alone? Okay, then let's set off together. Father Orion mumbled a few words, and after ending the call, the Noah's Ark flew past the Dreamer like a fly, then began to circle the planet in an arc. To escape Earth's gravity and fly directly to the moon, their spaceship didn't have enough power, so they needed to accelerate in circles to reach escape velocity before flying over. But when they left, they found that the Dreamer was still standing there, not moving for a long time. The operator asked, puzzled, what are they trying to do by stopping there? Has the spaceship malfunctioned? Some people had a gloating expression on their faces. If a malfunction occurs at this altitude, even if you are an inhuman of the epsilon level, you would probably find it difficult to escape. In the end, won't we still have to beg them? But someone has put forward a terrible idea. Could it be that they don't need to orbit the Earth, and the spacecraft's power is enough to escape Earth's gravity directly? Upon hearing this, the entire spaceship fell into a deathly silence. Some people want to argue that with the current level of space technology on this planet, it is simply impossible to do this. But as soon as you look back at the enormous and terrifying Dreamer, you can't bring yourself to say those words. Has the technological level of the Huashu Kingdom reached such a terrifying level? Father Orion frowned, a shadow falling over his eyes. It seems that the technology was obtained from the mechanical civilization of Fremont. I was somewhat shocked, even a little jealous and wary, but I couldn't think about it too much right now. I could only head to the moon first. The shock they felt at that moment was deeply etched in the minds of the people from the Holy See. At this moment, it wasn't just the people on the spaceship who witnessed the scene. At the Betagon Air Control Center, countless people witnessed this horrific scene firsthand. Huashu Kingdom, Chaos, Zhang Yi. Arnold Oleb took a deep breath and instinctively gripped the cross on his chest. Just how many secrets is this guy hiding? And what about the Aluan Empire? Could they really have destroyed it? That can't be, can it? Oreb also doubted the veracity of the news. According to their intelligence, none of the top-tier experts in Huashu Kingdom had died in battle. If it were a war of annihilation, even the strongest Huashu Kingdom would suffer heavy losses. Everything has become a huge mystery, lingering in the minds of many in the Holy See. Oreb said to Orion from afar, remember to keep a close eye on Chaos. That guy has quite a few secrets. Moreover, he also possesses the remains of Michael. We cannot allow him to interfere with our plans on this trip to the moon. The Noah's Ark flew far away, while Zhang Yi and the others remained waiting in the same spot. Soon after, Columbia's space shuttle arrived in the vicinity with its own spacecraft. The same scene happened again. No human being could remain unmoved and insignificant upon first seeing the Tsongyuan clan's super warship. When Zhang Yi's voice rang in Morgan's ears, he wondered if he was hallucinating. To be honest, he would rather have actually encountered aliens than accept that this super battleship belonged to Zhang Yi. Chapter 23-28 Above the Moon 3. Two of the three spacecraft were filled with people who had been driven to depression by Zhang Yi. Morgan was as confident and triumphant as he arrived. Now he was as silent as he was. Before coming, he smugly imagined that with their world-leading technological level, they could put on a big show in front of Zhang Yi and the Holy See. Now, things have turned out very differently. Zhang Yi waited for them to orbit the planet, accelerate, and then use the effect of a gravity slingshot to launch them toward the moon. Only then did he leisurely let Liu Karen fly over with them. Even when it comes to space travel, there are differences between spacecraft. Zhang Yi's Dreamer is huge, fast, stable, and very flexible to operate, able to land at the designated location without deviation. However, the other two spaceships will have to rely on luck to land safely. After flying for several hours, the huge satellite finally began to slowly grow larger before their eyes. However, the front was not their goal. They wanted to go to the back of the moon. Without an atmosphere, all that can be seen are huge craters. Whether left by meteorite impacts or by the Lunarians' wars, it is unknown. We're approaching the moon. Everyone, be on alert. Zhang Yi's voice rang in everyone's ears. Faced with a place and a species whose background and characteristics were unknown, he did not assume that the other party would be very friendly. He was already wearing a full battle suit, and at this moment, Zhang Yi was ready to unleash his peak combat power with an ability index of over 45,000 points. Even if he uses all his trump cards, he can now hold his own against a powerhouse like the gatekeeper of the underworld, even without relying on Ling. As for Ling, she is in Zhang Yi's alternate dimension. However, her current state is quite special. After seizing most of the spiritual essence of the underworld gatekeeper, Zhang Yi no longer knows what kind of existence she is. In the past, she only had a shell and memories. So was she Ling? Or was she just a robot that looked a lot like Ling? But now that she possesses spiritual qualities, has she become Ling? Is she a life form? Zhang Yi doesn't like to ponder philosophical questions, but Keling is very important to him. At the very least, Zhang Yi didn't want her to have an independent consciousness, so that she would end up like the one who returned to the ether, with her physical body disappearing directly, leaving him with nowhere to turn for help. He had Yang Xinxin use her computer skills to add several pieces of data to the underlying code of her data. For example, to completely obey Zhang Yi's orders. But Yang Xinxin told Zhang Yi that this approach was completely unworkable. Ling's body is very special. Even her rule-based abilities are completely ineffective, let alone the laughable implanted code. Moreover, she couldn't find a port that could change its code. Fortunately, this Ling did not exhibit any unusual behavior. She was not absolutely obedient to Zhang Yi, otherwise she wouldn't have taken the initiative to seize the ether fragments. But she wouldn't refuse to do anything Zhang Yi asked her to do. The far side of the moon. This is a place that is completely unfamiliar to humankind. For countless years, humans have been unable to observe this area, which has filled them with endless curiosity. But today, on this desolate land, a war of immense scale has begun. Two armies, one glorious and vast, the other as silent as the night, unleashed a powerful torrent of steel, clashing fiercely with the most primitive weapons. Streams of supernatural power collided wildly across the sky, tearing the earth apart mercilessly, and countless supernatural beings were annihilated in wave after wave of collisions. The silver-glowing side wore holy armor, while the dark side had bodies covered in dark blue runes, which served as their best protection. Two completely opposite civilizations. Even their methods of wielding power are vastly different, yet both are powerful enough. The strength displayed by any of these armies far surpassed that of the soldiers of the Wulwan Empire, which was destroyed by Zhang Yi. Across a vast, dry canyon, hundreds of thousands of soldiers were engaged in a frenzied battle. High on the mountain peak, a general, whose figure was significantly taller than the other warriors and whose helmet looked like it was covered in thorns, held a strangely shaped spiral spear. He looked at the battlefield in front of him and then leaped into the air. Boom! Huge bolts of lightning descended from the sky, instantly engulfing him. In an instant, he transformed into a gigantic silver centaur-like creature in midair, his spiral lance carrying thunder and storm as he slammed it into the battlefield of the Black Army. Boom! Bolts of lightning, like straight lines, fell from the sky, blasting large numbers of Black Legion soldiers into pieces. Then, beams of light, symbolizing psychic energy, transformed into white orbs of light and disappeared into the earth. With the Silver Knight's intervention, the leader of the Black Legion also entered the fray. He was clad in black armor, darker than darkness itself, making it difficult to discern his features. He seemed as if he were a piece of something carved out of the material world. He exerted force with both feet and suddenly soared into the sky, transforming into a monster with 4 pairs of wings on its back, like a flying dragon. The enormous creature, hundreds of meters long, soared through the air, spewing forth endless flames that incinerated large numbers of White Legion soldiers into ashes. The 2 commanders of the Black and White Legions discovered each other's presence and quickly began to charge at each other, engaging in a fierce battle. The battlefield, like a meat grinder, cruelly ravages all life. However, at that moment, the light overhead suddenly dimmed. Boom! Something enormous fell from the sky, the roar of its engines even drowning out the fighting on the battlefield. Soldiers from both armies instinctively looked up at the sky. Then they saw an enormous warship slowly descending from the sky toward the battlefield. Even the 2 generals who were fighting each other stopped what they were doing out of fear. Boom! The Dreamer arrived on this battlefield, and according to the predetermined coordinates, it was indeed in this vicinity. However, upon arriving here, Zhang Yi and the others were dumbfounded. They witnessed a battle between the 2 races. Even though I already knew about the existence of the Lunarians, seeing them with my own eyes was still incredibly awe-inspiring. Seeing 2 different units, one black and one white, fighting together is especially thought-provoking. The Lunarians are not a monolithic entity. Could it be that their battles with each other are the cause of the moon's collapse? Zhang Yi guessed so.